So we're playing FF7 because FF7 is great. I love FF7, and because it was, I thought, a good April Fool's joke for Dalamar. But I thought I wanted to play something else, and I wanted to play something that maybe people aren't as used to but might appeal. So I'm going to be playing the Banner Saga. I don't know how far I'll get in the trilogy because, I haven't really done Let's Plays before. I don't know how committed I am. But it's a game I've been wanting to replay for a while, and I thought this might be a fun way to do it. So here's my quick pitch on Banner Saga and what it is. It's one component, a kind of Norse Viking vibe world with some. This isn't a great analogy, but kind of Game of Thrones elements of people can die really easily, or like the decision making games like Telltale's Walking Dead kind of thing, where you make poor decisions, or you make just decisions that seem plausible, and characters will die. And characters will die throughout the journey, and will try to make choices to keep them alive. It's been a long time since I've played this. I'm sure I'll make a lot of good decisions and a lot of bad decisions, and I think that's ideal for something like this. You can see the art style I think, gives a nice feel of that kind of Norse-ish world, though this is an invented world. The second thing this game is, and this is much weirder, is it's Oregon Trail. A lot of the game is, I mean, it doesn't take that much time, but it's simply watching your caravan move over space, move across the map towards different purposes, and things pop up as it happens. But it really has this nice, kind of relaxing feel. And much like Oregon Trail, that's also something, if you're my age and you played that as a kid or it came up as a kid, that's something where, of course, lots of people die there too. And it has that vibe as well. And I think captures it in a really nice, peaceful and satisfying way that I really hope is going to convey playing along with it. That it's really just a nice moments of downtime in the game. That often games have downtime between stuff, and that can be boring. And here, I think it really, really works well. And the third thing is a strategy RPG. And as the series goes on, it gets more complex in some ways that help, in some ways that I don't think help the gameplay. But it's this really interesting, some core mechanics to a strategy RPG, so think like FF Tactics, that make it quite different from any other strategy RPG I've played. And specifically, combat strategies. There are a lot of interesting decisions and interesting tools you have. Each character only has a few tools, but you can do some really neat stuff with them. And the decisions you're going to make about how to take advantage of turn order, what stats matter, what to aim for in enemies, are really interesting decisions. And I think it's just a really fun game to play and think about how to handle different situations. And I think it's going to be I think it's a very fun battle system for me personally. It's the kind of one I really get a lot of satisfaction from. I also think the game is really well written. The opening of the game is a little slow, but I hope you're used to RPGs. Openings of RPGs are slow. Got to get stuff set. But I think after that's going to kick off pretty quick, and hopefully we'll really get a feel for what it looks like. So we're going to start it up. The story in the Banner Saga changes based on the choices you make. You will occasionally switch between lead characters, witnessing the story unfold from different perspectives. And we're going to regularly see this map of the world. The gods are dead. In their wake, man and giant survived through a tenuous alliance, driving black destroyers called Dredge deep into the northern wastes. Now is an era of growth and trade. Life goes on. Only one thing has stopped. The sun. So we got two big problems. The Dredge are a problem, though it seems like we're doing okay there. And the sun has stopped. That doesn't seem great. Made by Stoic Games. I think this is the only major games they've released, are the Banner Saga trilogy and some accompanying materials. But I think it's a really fantastic trilogy. Here you can kind of start to see what it looks like when a caravan is moving along the map. It has been several long months on the road. The first signs of snowfall accost us on our approach to Strand, largest of the trade cities on the Varl-human borders, and our last collection, before returning to the capital. I believe this part is voice acted, but most of the game isn't. I also think the game has a quite appealing soundtrack, but if you're watching it with me, we will not be doing that because I'm just going to have it be my voice. Several days ago, the sun simply came to a stop in the sky, though during these long winter days, none of us can be certain how long it has been this way. An everlasting winter. You can see, very much like Norse ships, some of the men in the caravan have taken it as a dire omen. I am not quick to superstition, but I myself will be glad to be done with this year's rounds. We're actually starting playing as one of the giants, who will be known as Varl. We have Varl and humans. We have been warned by stranded travelers about brigands on the path through Ridgehorn, our road home. Our captain seems unconcerned. Perhaps he is as eager as I to be here. We will rest this day and inquire further when we speak to the governor. You can see we got the little flag we have waving. I think the aesthetic really works on. I think it really captures what to capture what it wants. Right? These obviously aren't graphics, but I think they do what the game wants and needs them to do, and fit nicely with the it's the kind of aesthetic of the story, if that makes sense. And I think it's nice when games work well that way. There are games where that happens, which I don't like, because I don't like either aesthetic. I don't want my story to be doing that. I don't want my graphics to be doing that. They're a good fit, but the game isn't for me. Here, I think I would find the graphics okay, except that I think they're a really nice fit. That ups them a bit for me. Cutscene graphics for me are not as appealing as the general backgrounds. I like the backgrounds more than the character models. And here we can see a hall. We're not getting voice acting. So we're missing a little here of the voice acting on. But man, Varl are... Alright. I will say, it might feel like we're missing story. I don't think this part's very important. So I realize it's kind of crummy to come in and immediately feel you're missing something. But I think it will both immediately become clear. And so we have come to this city, and you've just arrived in time. The chieftain in red and his men are now looking at a tougher fight than they bargained for. Drag around the screen to see your surroundings. Click the check mark to continue. There will be lots of rebellions and revolts to work on, but this is going to be an intro to the gameplay. So, portraits show the order of initiative. The first thing you'll notice at the bottom of the screen is we switch off turns, and that will be very consistent. That is a really important rule with complications coming from it that you wouldn't expect if you just have it in your head. But what it means at its core is being outnumbered is not as big a disadvantage as it seems if it forces turns to switch off every time. If you have 2 characters and they have 5, you'll each get the same total number of turns. So in the time your 2 characters take 5 turns each, their 5 characters will take 2 turns each. And this is quite interesting. It means you can have a character dart in and out if you are undermanned compared to your opponent. It creates lots of little things. I think it's a nice effect. And leads to some interesting gameplay stuff. The blue we can see around our character is what we can move to, and we can spend an exertion point to move into the yellow. Our character currently over here has 5 out of 5 exertion points, but that is for the whole fight. There are ways to restore exertion during the fight, but generally this is a restorable resource, but not an infinite one. And we start with 5, and that's probably what we'll have. So you can move and then you act. Once you've acted, you don't get to move again after. In FF Tactics, you can do it in either order. And so here we can reach an enemy if we use an exertion point, because we can move to the yellow. Also, these coals you see in the middle of the track, those hurt you if you step over them. We will try not to step over them. You'll notice Varl are much bigger than humans. They make bigger targets. They can be hard to defend, but they also tend to come with higher stats in exchange for that. They also can block up more space, so if you need someone to block up rows and you want an archer behind it, a Varl is going to be a bigger blockade than a smaller unit. Lots of really interesting stuff to work with. So we're going to move him. This will cost an exertion point. If you look over here, willpower is 5 out of 5. We're going to move here. We have to confirm the movement. It will drop to 4 out of 5 because we used an exertion. Now we can click on an enemy. They have 2 stats. They have shield and health. If we click on them, we now see options. We can choose, we can attack one of their armor or their health. Now our character, this 5th stat is weapon break. If we attack armor, it always does 2 damage. We can always do 2 to armor. What about attacking their life? Well, this will do 5 damage because we have 9 power. Our strength is also our health. We'll get to that in a moment. This game's complicated. We have 9 power. They have 4 shield, so 9 minus 4 is 5. If we go for their health, we'll do 5 damage to the remaining. Now, if they had 10 shield, if their blue stat was 10, then our attack would do either 0 or 1, probably 1 if we attack their health. And we'd want to weaken their armor before attacking their health. Here, their armor is already low, so we can finish them off by attacking their strength. This also is another really interesting effect. Strength and health are the same. As your strength falls, you will be much worse at doing damage to others' strength because you won't be able to overcome their shields anymore. And this is, again, going to create some interesting effects. So we are going to attack them. You can read these dialogue if you want, but we are going to, I feel like I've explained, this will be enough to kill it. We'll attack here. We could use an exertion point here. This little yellow is an exertion option, but we already are doing 5 damage. Now, if you're really clever and ahead of the game, you might think it would actually, we don't have this choice, but it would be better to do 4 damage than to do 5. Because if we leave them with a unit with just 1 health, then it has very little ability to do damage to us, but it will take 1 of every 4th turn of theirs, right? The bigger army is not necessarily better than the smaller one if the bigger army is out of power. And one really interesting key strategy in this game, though at some points you won't want to be going for it, is going to be to weaken their strength, but not finish them off to waste turns of the opponents. Because if you remember, we're switching off every turn. So I'm saying a lot of the strategy stuff. We get a renown when we do it. As our renown grows, those are points we can spend on any character, not just the character that got the kill, to level them up. Though a character needs a certain amount of kills to level up. A lot going on. It will start to make sense eventually. After taking an action, our turn ends. Now it's their turn. Now, they can attack us, but they'll do little damage because we have high armor. So they did 1. They went to our health. Let's actually move over and look at that. Our character that they attacked had high armor, so they went for our armor. They went for our health, but they only did 1 damage because they couldn't overcome our armor. They should have tried to weaken our armor first. Also, you may have noticed a -1 to armor popped up over them. This Varl, the shield bearer unit, has an ability whenever it is attacked, it does an armor damage to the attacker, which is quite useful, because if you have ways to lower their armor without needing to spend an attack on it, it'll be easier to attack for damage later. Now, this guy, Gunnulf, who's going to be a character actually given a name, hint hint, they're more important, is not in range of enemies, but we can use willpower to get to them. We have 8 willpower. This will use 2 willpower, because we're moving 2 squares into the yellow. That will drop us to 6, but we can move next to both enemies. Now, some characters have AoE attacks, some characters don't. Gunnulf is a Warhawk, he does. So he could attack normally and hit 1 of the enemies, but Tempest, he can hit 2 enemies, and if you level it up even more, and it's for full strength damage. So this enemy has 7 and 6. We're hitting for strength damage, that's 13. That'll finish it off. And maybe it'll finish off the other one too. Yeah, so if enemies are low, Gunnulf can do ridiculous damage. And Tempest is a very strong ability. Now we're in pillage mode. There's a lot I'm throwing at you right now, and there's a lot the game throws at you. But basically, when the enemy is down to just 1, now the turn thing stops, and it's just all our guys get a turn for every 1 turn they get. So keeping enemies alive can be useful, but you can also, if you can get them down to 1 enemy, you will get lots of turns to their 1, and it means it's not a huge pain to finish off the last enemy, because if they continue trading off, that enemy would get like infinite turns to every one of yours, and this makes it much cleaner to finish off fights. If a character does not move, they can restore willpower. Now here, we can do 8 damage, and if we spend an exertion point, right, we can up that by 1. We have the exertion point to spend, so we can do 9 damage. You can see the expectation going from 8 to 9. Some characters can spend more than 1 exertion at once. You may remember Gunnulf could spend 2, but this green thing says how much you can spend per turn of your willpower points, and this unit can only spend 1 a turn, but that's enough to do 9 damage, and we can finish our intro fight. And we'll get a bonus in renown for completing the fight. Our renown grows. Usually around 10. Okay, a little less here. Like a rabid wolf, that one, says the village chieftain. How did it come to this? We fool ourselves, believing that peace will last. My grandfather built all this from a poor fishing village, you know. We watched the gods die, watched the chaos that followed, watched man and Varl slaughter each other, even before the dredge arose. All we've done is traded one struggle for another. Now that there are no more dredge to war against, we war against ourselves. This chieftain meant to kill me, and he's not the first. A dozen families in the city would gladly take my chair. This one had men waylaying merchants, both north and south of the city, strangling trade. Quite well, I would add, though he denied it to his last. This sort of wolf doesn't stop biting because the head is cut off. It just grows a new head. So, I think the writing in this game is just generally, I'm in a bad way, my friend. Help me finish this fight, and I will gladly send you on your way with double our king's tide. We are actually a tax agent at this point in the game. We're here to take the men you need. They're loyal, I promise you that. They will meet you down in the proving grounds. So, I think the game is well written, but sometimes jumps into waxing philosophical a bit before it's earned. If there's lines here, we're not getting them. I'm sorry. There really isn't much in the game like this, and I understand feeling like you're missing key stuff, but I think he's just delivering the lines we already read. I like how silly Varl look. So yeah, really interesting gameplay with a bunch of mechanics that we don't have to understand all of yet, but I'm going to try to explain in hopefully a clear, useful manner. Chapter 1. Only the sun has stopped. I also hope you enjoy the writing and storytelling of this game. I think it's going to get quite compelling pretty quickly. You're approached by a familiar man who walks in step with you as you're leaving the Great Hall. He cuts to the chase. And we're going to have a bunch of dialogue decisions. I'm just going to, make various choices. Eric says, Eric, steward of Strand. I manage the governor's business. Ubin, isn't it? So we have options. We'll be polite. I'm in favor of politeness when it's there. It is. The governor tells me you'll be giving us a hand. Incidentally, there are so many characters, it's not a game with 108 characters, but there are many characters that you can recruit or not recruit depending how you treat them, that live or die depending on your choices, but few enough that I think you have a sense of who all the people are, or at least enough of a sense to keep the party feeling more contained than some games get. The governor tells me you'll be giving us a hand. What do you have in mind? Scaffoldings that didn't hack up, you didn't hack up in the Great Hall, scattered after you took out our chieftain, Scalfings. The governor just wants to make sure they stay down. Was hoping you'd join me at the marketplace by the docks. If there's anyone left to worry about, I know who can tell us. Alright, so we're going to go to the market tent to visit the market. Whenever we stop at a city, we'll be able to go to different locations. We also have some other things. This takes us to an options menu. This lists our renown. This is our how many days of supplies do we have for traveling. As that number gets lower, we will get scared of things. And here we have both how many fighters of different types we have, and also what the morale of our caravan currently is. It will get worse over time. It will not stay great the whole way. I can assure you of that. Let me handle this. You meander through rows of open-face houses and eroded stalls. Colored canvases flap on a briny current. One man in particular blanches as you approach. Had, I'm not in the mood today. For what? Talking to an idiot. The Scalfing's chieftain bled out about an hour ago, Had. So when you tell me what rat anus the rest of them crawled back into, nobody's going to try to kill you this time. They don't talk to me. Do we let Eric handle it, or do we offer our help? I'm going to offer help. I'm not sure he wants help. So I'm not sure this is the kind thing to do. The kind thing to do might be to say nothing and just wait. But I think we're going to offer our help. Had, I had a change of heart. I hope you do give us a hard time. Had sweats visibly, fumbling with some dirty trinkets on his table. Wait, just buy one of these. If everybody thinks I'm getting worked over every week, how am I supposed to know much? Just a little food money, yeah? We'll pay him. You toss a sliver of silver on the table. Both men look at you with surprise. Had gestures meekly to a variety of junk from his stall. Take whatever you like. Only thing I'd like is the name of a place. Nobleman, up by East Wall, but that was months ago, last I know. Had skulks away with a wave of Eric's hand, gathering things from his hovel, disappearing for a while until this blows over, you figure. Your bodyguard steps forward. Are we done here? Gunnulf, were you wearing green back at the Great Hall? He was not. You can go back and look. No, just bought him while you were walking around. Why? I mean, obviously we're going to tell him he looks like a frog. No other choice. Better than an eggplant. Ooh, good comeback. Gunnulf goes off to look at more stalls. Eirik, that man of yours seems unreliable at best. A blind dog wouldn't trust Had, but he used to be scalping. If they're licking their wounds, they've probably gone back to old haunts, not new ones. Nobleman is a mead hall. Best I can tell, the name's ironic. Listen, I know a guy who would love to put a few of those skulls in the ground. I'm going to find him. I'll meet you there. We have a choice. Shouldn't we have an approach of some sort? Where is this place again? Or after this I'm done here? Let's ask, shouldn't we have an approach? What a luxury. Come on, we've already mopped up worse today. Just make sure the governor remembers his promise. Double the usual tithe. I'll remind him. Loading screens are fairly regular, but none too bad. They're taking a little longer than I think they normally would, because I have the recording stuff slowing down my computer. Let's head to the mead house. You arrive in front of what must be Nobleman. A few minutes later, Eirik appears with a weather-beaten man introduced as Valgard. I'll point them out, Eirik says over his shoulder. Ready? Let's get it over with. That's the spirit, says Valgard. Okay, here we go. Valgard boots the front door open so hard it won't close again without repair. As you enter the hall, Eirik is already at the head of a table, his axe drawn. Wide-eyed, drunken scalfings scramble to find their own weapons, turning tables and mead stains in the process. Loading. Incidentally, this is not really a spoiler, very minor spoiler. I think it's a little odd the game starts this way, because this is not really an important crew of characters in a lot of ways to follow, and I think it's curious they start it not quite in the action. So before each fight, we can choose how to line up our characters. We can put them in various places, see the enemies line up, and figure out where we want to put them. I don't really think there's too much exciting to do here, so we'll just say we're ready, and we'll see how the next fight goes. So I don't really want to move in range of the enemy. So, I don't know, in FF Tactics, often you kind of can wait a turn, and they will move in range of you, and I think I'm going to do that here. Yeah, so I could use an exertion point to get to him. But let's actually see what abilities we have. He has Rally. That can move willpower to another character in the party. But I think we're also just we're gonna wait. They have an exertion point they used. I shouldn't have done that. And he hit us for a bunch of power with an ability we will see again later. Alright, that was quite poor of me. I'm gonna move, I think I can move 2 steps or 1 step forward and hit this guy. I'm gonna move 1. I'm gonna stay far back. And we can... I should probably lower their health while I can, because I can do decent health damage, and Eirik can't do much health damage because his power has been so lowered, so he's going to be fairly weak. Now, Gunnulf's an interesting character to make decisions with. His stats have actually lowered since the last fight. He cannot spend any exertion, he cannot use extra, even though he has the willpower, and his break is really bad, but he has so much strength. But that also means we have to be careful with him, because while he could kill this guy in 1 hit, his armor's not that great. As soon as he takes damage, and we will kill this guy in 1 hit, as soon as he takes damage, he really loses a lot of his power, right? you often want someone a little more balanced, because if they hit us for health damage, yeah, they used a special move. We'll be seeing that move more. He's going to lose a lot of value quickly. So we're going to come here, and I think we should just go. Yeah, let's bring them to 1 strength. Because 1 strength is the ideal spot. Then we can just leave them alone, and they will waste turns for the opponent. Now, Eirik is really weak right now. So you can see he's only 80% to do 1 damage, because his strength is 3, which is under their armor's defense. I think I will hit them for armor, just to make sure the big guy can kill them easily next turn. He only does 1 to armor, not a great armor breaker. And then I'm going to move him here and finish off this guy so no one can reach Eirik, who's low on life, because I have a big Varl in the way. They're attacking Gunnulf again. He's going to lose power so quickly, but the fools, they put 2 characters next to him. On the other hand, do we want to kill the one with 1? Maybe we just kill this guy, or bring him down to 2. Nah. Let's use Tempest. It's fun. We will finish off the guy with 1s. This is probably a mistake, but it's fun to do a lot of damage. Oh, I made a mistake. I let them get to Eirik. Alright, they couldn't quite take him out. See, already I'm not playing particularly well. This guy only has 2 power, so I think it's worth going for the one with 6. I think we really want to lessen their potential threat. Actually, we can just finish this one off, so we will. And that will give a turn to an enemy that only has 2 power. And I guess this guy's the threat. It's probably going to kill me next turn. Can I run away and hide? I think I'm just going to try to get away from him and keep Eirik alive. You don't permanently die or anything, but I think it is... I try to keep people alive when I can. So I think I want to move here so other characters can get at this unit after I hit him. And I'm going to take out half his strength, so he's no longer a threat, hopefully. And at this point, I do want to get them down to 1 enemy if I can, because then I get all the turns. Alright. Sadly, Gunnulf can't reach the action. Still has the most power on the field. You can see they did 2 shield damage, but because I still had 10 shield, he couldn't do damage when he went. It was deflected when he went for the proper attack. Alright, our 10-10 unit can easily take out this one, and that puts us in pillage mode, where they get a turn, but then all our units get a turn before they do. And so we can pretty easily finish them off. Probably should have exerted twice to finish off their armor. You don't save exertion between battles. And we finish them off, and have won our second fight. No one taken out yet. Wasn't terrible. I don't think I did amazing there or anything, but you can see how there's some interesting stuff going on. I don't care about achievements. But Gunnulf is ready for promotion, which means if we want to spend renown on him later, we can up his stats. I will say, I think Gunnulf is too strength heavy and doesn't have enough shield. And he's so big that it's hard to be careful with him, right? Because you're going to want him to hit enemies that have lowered shield. So you're going to kind of need other units to hit them first. So he can do huge strength damage, right? Because strength is his strength. But if he's too near the battle and he's a big target, because he doesn't have much armor himself, it's easy for him to have his strength drop off fast. And then he's a pretty weak unit. So I probably won't be spending on Gunnulf. Though he does look like a frog, and I do love that line. There they are. Gods be damned. I've got to wash off this blood. Eirik is looking out the hall's window onto the bay. A fleet of longships approach with sails of bold reds and blues. One banner I know well, Vognir, next for Varl kingship last we spoke. The other flag looks important. Yeah, important guests. See what I deal with all day long. Things make a little more sense. You hoped I'd have a stake in saying everything's fine here when the royal guests arrived. Not me, the governor. Now I have to make sure there are no rotting bodies or pools of entrails still in the Great Hall before they come by. Can I ask one more favor? Will be nice. What is it? If you happen to stall our guests down on the docks, I wouldn't object. Maybe I will. Eirik and Valgard hustle from the mead house To his credit, Eirik tosses the barkeep a spar of silver for the mess. You give an apologetic shrug and go to greet the new arrivals down at the docks. So this is very much, a world of constant violence and fighting over resources. I think that should be pretty clear at this point. And lots of characters will have a disregard for human life. Let's head over to the docks. As I said earlier, I think the start of this game is a bit slow. There's going to be a viewpoint switch fairly soon, and I think the pace of the game jumps up a lot at that point. But I still think it's a solid intro to a game that's even better throughout. Wagner, so we're meeting the Prince of the Varl. A familiar Varl steps onto the docks. In your mind, you recall a much younger version tramping the halls of Grofheim, abundant in purpose. God, Zubin, you're looking ancient. Comes with being old, and if there is Wagner, there must be Hakan. Must there? Says Hakan. Still bleeding tributes from the poor and stupid old yaks. At what age do you lose a sense of shame? Jurinder demands it. I'll take that over lingering to death in Grofheim. Speaking of, I had no sense that you were so far from home. Just returned from Arborang, in fact. I'm glad for it. Hakan motions to the other ships in the bay, sails still fluttering, golden wolfhead emblazoned on red, the king of men, or someone on his behalf. The king's whelp. The king's son, Ludin. Don't you know, Scrivener? We visit his capital, he visits ours. It's how you make alliances these days. It's a miserable waste of time. Yes, Hakan has it. I'd almost forgotten. It's a good thing you're around, Hakan. Then you're going to Grofheim. I have the distinct feeling I've finished my business in Strand and was heading there myself. We should caravan. We should. Give it a day. In better circumstances, I'd drink a week away, but, let's just be done. Find me tomorrow at the gates. What he's trying to say is the prince is a delight to behold. Where's Mauger, Hakan? Have him find a place to put up the warriors. I'm heading up to meet the governor. A host of giants departs in his wake. You recognize a few. Others are strangers to you. So clearly before the dredge, there was a lot of fighting between Varl and humans, as that kind of intro during the cutscene speech had. And now that has largely been replaced by fighting with the dredge, and there is more diplomacy between the Varl and the humans. And it's not something worn all that comfortably, right? They clearly really don't like the human prince, and also the way the world works now is less deciding things by force and more deciding things by diplomacy. And the Varl prince, at least, is not used to this changing of the world, or at least has some mixed feelings about it. Guess I'm off to find Mauger. See you in the morning, Scrivener. I'll be along. The young prince of men ambles from his ship. He brushes off his tunic, scanning the beach with low eyelids. Ludin looks for all the world the sort of boy who grew up pulling the legs from spiders. The long road back to Grofheim should be more interesting than most years, you think. This Ludin, prince of humans, doesn't seem great so far, but we've not actually met him yet. Let's head to the... Weariness suddenly settles in, and you chuckle to yourself about what an odd day it has been. One of the governor's men at the Great Hall could find you a place to sleep. On the other hand, if you're going to join Wagner's caravan tomorrow, it might not hurt to share a drink with a Khan, or introduce yourself to the prince they spoke so highly of. So we can go to the Great Hall, but we also have a chance to go meet with people. It's not like you have to choose one or the other, you'll get to talk to both. So we're going to talk to Hakan first. It says you get a chance to talk to one of your heroes. That is to say, these are usually party members, but not necessarily. Your party is your team of heroes, they're called. Scrivener. You find Hakan in a mead house surrounded by other Varl. Strand is no stranger to Varl, but rarely sees this many. Hakan waves you over. Went straight for a flagon. Wagner's the one who agreed to pass up a drink. I wasn't invited to the governor's hall anyway. You already missed the massacre. Every year I make the rounds collecting taxes. Every year it's the human settlements that give me trouble. No surprise, but this time. When I got here, the Great Hall was already full of bodies. We added a few more. Huh, humans. I guess if I only lived as long as a Yox fart, I might be desperate to make something of myself too. It's not too late to start trying, Hakan. Hakan let slip a low chuckle. Any Varl could recount his deeds, known as he is, for cutting a swath through Dredge at Wagner's side in the Second War, and regularly since then. Down here I'm a glorified bodyguard. You might have a point. Just another reason to get back to Grofheim. Soon enough, I imagine. You drink until the mead house becomes overbearing, then step back into the cool air outside. Alright, I like Hakan. Think we have a good interchange there. A lot of sarcasm you may have noticed in this game. I think sarcasm often gives a good feel for both characters having a sense of humor and what they're bothered by in the world. I think it can be a really nice way to show personality. Is this the right place? You find the prince at an inn. Guards blanket the building, including a sharp-eyed Varl who must be working for Luden. A woman in red eventually waves you over and stands nearby, arms crossed. Greetings, Prince Luden. Yes, you're with Wagner? I don't remember you. Not exactly. I've known Wagner a long time. I'll be joining you back to Grofheim with my guards. Luden looks up for the first time. The woman doesn't react. Why? I work for the king, carrying tithes to the capital. We crossed by chance. Oh, a tax collector. Fine company. What do you want? We have some choices here for what we want. I think I'm going to say I have a habit of recording history. I thought we might talk about your visit. You can see the pen in our hand. We are the scrivener. A Varl historian. Aha, don't you already know? Your king and mine both have been practically trumpeting it throughout the cities. I've been on the road a while, I'm afraid. Luden takes a deep sigh. Whether tired or ungracious, you aren't certain. Maybe both. A formality, mostly. Wagner came to our capital in Arborang, and now we go to the Varl's capital in Grofheim to cement this grand alliance for the next age of men in Varl. You sound unconvinced. There's no need for it. It's damn cold up here. You get the sense he's struggling not to complain outright. You take the opportunity to excuse yourself. Luden, not the most likable, but could have been worse, I suppose. And time to head to the Great Hall. -1 supplies. We spent a day here. Our supply count of how many days of supplies will go down. We're at 100. This caravan is in pretty good shape at the moment. At dawn, you're awoken by a delivery of goods. At least you think it's dawn. Damn hard to tell with a sun that never moves. The governor's crest adorns the supply leathers. All there, just as promised, to your mild surprise. You wonder if Eric had anything to do with that. I do think they're doing good kind of mood setting of the universe. Your guards take the treasure wagon down to the gates. Wagner is already here. A while later, Luden and his men appear, groggy and disheveled. Mauger steps forward. Wagner's quartermaster, if you recall correctly, in charge of his unwieldy entourage of warriors. You know him only in passing. He asks if you're ready to depart. We're ready. You follow Mauger and join the others. Usually, the small doors set into the gates would be enough to enter or leave the city, but the town guards have been told to push them open entirely. They mutter things under their breath that are best not heard. Perhaps the governor expected you to draw a crowd, but there's nothing of the sort, just frustrated, tired people. It summarizes Strand well as a whole, you think. And I think we're off. And so I'll probably be ending this video soon, but we're going to be, we had the kind of decision-making and world setting, and now we can see our caravan start to move across the land. And often when this happens, decisions will pop up, events will happen. We use supplies. If we look at this, our supplies went from 100 to 66. That's because we have a much larger crew. The bigger our crew is, the more days of supplies we eat at a time, right? Which does not mean it goes down by more than one at a time, but what looks like 100 supplies if a bunch of people are added will become only 66 days of supplies if you have a lot more people. And so our caravan moves, and we come to decision points. The caravan stops for the day. A gift, says Maugre, cracking open mead casks, from our gracious friend, the governor of Strand. Hours pass, with raucous laughter as the mead is passed throughout camp. Let's toast to Vognir. You raise your drink, toasting the alliance between man and Varl. The others join in. Ludin's expression is like a stone wall, but the others laugh at your exaggerations. Eventually, you sit down beside Vognir. Let's chat with him, see what he has to say. Thanks for the speech, slurs Vognir. Looks like you didn't have to miss out after all. Thanks to Maugre, I thought the damned governor would never shut up. Did he give you the history of his entire family? He tried, and he asked me to clean up his mess. For your benefit, turns out. I'd have given the job to you too. Gods, there's no joy in politics. Speaking of, what happens after this business with Ludin? Hopefully the boy goes back to Arborang on his own, and I can take out some frustration on Dredge or something. Starting to sound like a con. You don't like the life of a diplomat. Huh, don't you miss the fight, Ubin? You down your mead instead of replying. Vognir slouches and shakes his head. There's no great joy in killing Dredge, but pretty sure this nonsense is some scheme between the two kings to force some kind of lineage. Used to be, warriors would follow you for what you'd done. Isn't that why they follow you now? Is it? Or is it because I'm the next in line? These lines are getting muddy, old Varl. They've always been muddy, Vognir. Vognir stares into the campfire, lost in thought. You leave him to it. Gonna stop at the next save point opportunity. Could have taken the one with the caravan. Ah, yes, perfect. This will be it. You rise groggily, the campsite a casualty of merriment. Maugre is already kicking warriors awake when you spot Ludin stalking your direction. He sidesteps sleeping bodies. Better wake up, you nudge Vognir. You're needed. I guess we have a couple more scenes before camp. But camp will be an opportunity to save and leave more for next time. Ah, it's Ludin. Always a pleasure. Sarcasm again. You look well rested. Vognir releases a caged yawn and receives a hard-eyed stare in return. How long to Grofheim? Huh. We're only 2 days out of Strand, you know. Come, I'll show you on a map. The game is going to teach us about maps. Which is to say, it's nice to kind of be able to see the ground your caravan has covered as the story in the game goes on. This is very much a journey of travel, right? As many are, of course. This is the map of the world. You can explore it by dragging the mouse to using the mouse wheel to zoom. You can see we can look around. We can see Grofheim up in the north. Strand is where we're at. Arborang down in the south. So that's the human capital we've learned. And up here is the Varl capital. At this point in the game, I definitely feel much closer to the Varl, I think. Obviously, they're setting us up to do that, but I think they do so well. The location of your caravan is indicated by Ubin's icon. And so we can look around here, and you can learn little bits about the stuff, and the more you want to explore, the more you can, but you don't have to. So you can click something, you get a little story on it, and then when you're done, I wasn't supposed to do that. When you were finished, you can click this button at the bottom and return to camp. But anytime you're in camp, you can look at a map. We will probably be doing so from time to time. We head north, then east past the forts. Grofheim's far from Strand. Gonna be a long march. You should have drank last night, Ludin. Why not take the ships to Skrymerstead? What's the point of marching? The Silverstone Bay is called that for a reason. Stays covered in ice all year. It would tear up the longships. Too bad, though. We could have shown you all the wonders of Skrymerstead. A half-sunken city crawling with dredge prints, dredge and glaciers. You like glaciers? Ludin exhales through the nose, a poor disguise for his contempt. He turns and bats aside the tent flap as he goes, barking at his company in the distance. Don't poke the anthill, Vognir. He seems no happier to be here than you. Spend a few more days with the boy, old friend. You'll be looking for a tall cliff to hop off, too. Ludin's got a shorter wick than Hakan. Thanks, Wagner. Let's get moving. Another half day to Vetterfell if we're lucky. I think we get to make camp here. Yeah. Oh, no. It's going to explain to me. Camp is where we manage our caravan. We can, during travel, we can click the camp button at any time to come here. We can upgrade people so we can spend our renown. We can do various stuff. We can also pass time using rest. That will up the caravan's morale, which gives us some better stats in battle. And if we enter war, high morale is helpful. We'll get to what war is in a bit. But it also uses supplies up. So it very much depends on if we have the supplies to spend to keep morale up. The training tent also lets us do mock battles, which I don't think we'll be doing. But we can click the heroes tent. And we can look at our party. You can see each of our characters is level 1, hence the 1. All 4 part characters are currently in our party. Our party can be up to 6. And we can also look at our stats. The plus you saw if we looked at Gunnulf means we can level him up. Oops, didn't mean to go back yet. My bad. But the plus we saw in Gunnulf's icon is he has enough kills to be leveled up. We'll go back to the Heroes 10. Any character with a plus can be leveled more than you have. In this game, you can level from 1 to 5, which seems small, but will be, I think, sufficient. So we can look through our character stats, and you can see Gunnulf has 7 armor, but we can upgrade that up to 12. Go away, I don't need... Alright, that won't go away. Yeah, we can click this to learn about their abilities. So Gunnulf has Tempest, and he also has the special ability that if he hits an enemy, any enemy near them, touching them, will take 1 damage from the impact. So he's really good at dealing strength damage. He has this huge strength stat, 15. It can go up to 18. But he has this pretty low exertion stat. We can't get him to be able to spend much willpower. His willpower is really low. He's bad at breaking armor. Really good at strength. Not good at other things. That can be worthwhile. Let's look at Ludin. More willpower. More ability to use will. Less similar armor, but much lower strength. Let's look at his ability. Impale is an ability that does some strength damage and also pushes them back. And every time they move, they take more strength damage from it makes them bleed. So if you hit them with this and push them back, they'll take strength damage from being pushed back. And when they move forward to reach you again to hit you back, they'll take even more bleed damage. So he is really good at dealing strength damage, even if the enemy still has armor, because he can use an ability that ignores some of their armor. His spear also has 2 range, which is quite nice. Every time he gets a kill, he and any ally next to him gets a will bonus, so that gives a way to heal willpower during battle. I think Ludin's got pretty useful stuff. Not sure if I think he's better than Gunnulf, but I think he's pretty useful. Hakan, we can compare to Gunnulf. He has 9 and 14 armor and power, while Gunnulf is 7 and 15. Gunnulf's maximum is 12 and 18. Hakan's is also 12 and 18. But I think Hakan's initial distribution of higher armor is a bit better. You'll also notice he has more exertion and more maximum exertion, so it's easier for him to power through. He can break better. The 5th stat is break. Let's go through the 5 stats quickly. The first thing is what's your special ability. The second is armor. The third is health, but also strength. Then we have willpower. How much willpower do you enter a battle with? The first number we see is the current stat. The second number is if we upgrade it, the maximum stat. Every time we level up, we get 2 stat points to distribute however we want. The next is exertion. How much willpower can we use at once? And the next is shield break. If we attack shields, how much do we do? Hakan has very good stats. He has a move that does extra break with a strength bonus. So he can hit while doing some break damage, while doing strength damage. It's a nice ability. And he also has the heavy impact thing Gunnulf has. And our final character is Mauger. Very different stats for a Varl. Really high armor, lower attack. I also like these stats quite a bit. You'll also notice he can get up to 4 break. So his job is to be really high armor so they can't do much to him, and he's going to do our shield breaking. And if we look at his abilities, Bring the Pain is he hits for armor damage, and then when enemies hit him, they take shield damage too. Break damage is also shield damage. So he is really good at breaking shields. And that means, in our party, we're going to move him to first turn order, because I want him to break shields before other characters can come in and hit for serious armor damage. And that gives him, I think, a really important role in this party. And if these were the only 4 characters we get, and you said, okay, you can only save one of them, and I'm going to get rid of one of the other 3, who are you saving? I would save him because he has the most unique use in the party. And I'm going to hopefully quickly upgrade his break, because he can break 4 armor in a turn. He has special abilities that help that even more. He's going to be a really useful party member. That said, I think that's all we've got. Again, I really like the gameplay of this game, so I get interested in thinking about the characters. But, yeah, I think it saves when we get here. I think the game is constantly auto-saving. So we're gonna quit. And I hope you enjoyed this journey into Banner Saga. I think it's a really fun little RPG. Not so little as it turns out.